Plans to dispose of low-level radioactive waste in a landfill site in Northamptonshire have been approved by the Communities Secretary Eric Pickles.
By the way, we will talk more about that FIFA story a bit later. Shortly after the Communities Secretary Eric Pickles came to office, he said this: "I want to give an indication of my three most important priorities. These are localism, localism and localism. I will make sure that localism is not something conveniently put away in a box, but wrapped up in the very DNA of the department. I'm determined, as I know many in local government are, to shift power away from central government and pass it to local people and community groups. It is all about empowering the citizens to act collectively on local issues." And this year, he came forward with legislation.
The bill will reverse the central creep of decades and replace it with local control. It's a triumph for democracy over bureaucracy. It will fundamentally shake up the balance of power in this country. It will revitalise local democracy and put power back where it belongs, in the hands of the people.
So, why has Eric Pickles overruled the wishes of the people of King's Cliffe in Northamptonshire, telling them they'll have to accept radioactive waste at a local landfill site? Andrew Bomford is there.
Eddie, let me describe where I am. I'm standing by a beautiful 12th century church. There's a small mill pond down here, and I've just seen a kingfisher darting down over the water. There's pretty limestone cottages, the pub and the village shop. It all seems about as far from a nuclear waste dump as it's possible to be. A couple of miles down the road and it seems a very different place completely. This is the entrance to the landfill site, and there is a constant din of lorries coming in and out of here carrying hazardous waste. Add to that soon low-level nuclear waste. By the decision of the Secretary of State Eric Pickles today, it's all a devastating blow to local residents Louise Bowen-West and Claire Langan.
Well, like most people throughout the area, we feel absolutely devastated, appalled, and as though he's dealt a real kick in the teeth to our communities.
We've held referendums and put hours and hours and years of effort into this, and all that has been completely disregarded.
And people might think from the kind of background noise that we're in the middle of a big city. We're not, are we?
No, this is the bizarre thing. We're in the middle of rural East Northamptonshire, near lovely conservation villages, stone-built villages. What borders the tip is farmland. This is just so alien to the people who live around here.
The landfill site specialises in taking hazardous waste, but it's been fighting a long battle to also store low-level nuclear waste here too. It's the sort of contaminated soil and building rubble produced by the nuclear industry, which can't go into normal landfill because it's contaminated with low levels of radiation. The company that runs the site here, Augean, claims it's only 1% of the normal background radiation you'd find naturally in some parts of Britain. But that does not reassure the people who live here, 98% of whom voted in a referendum against the proposals. Nor does it reassure their political representatives, the planners or the county council, all of whom turned down the company's requests. So they went instead to the government. But Dr. Jean Wilson from Augean says this is a facility of vital national importance.
Throughout the process, all technical bodies, all planning bodies, the professional officers have all recommended approval of this proposal. It is the county council that turned the proposal down, and because we felt that the reasons for refusal were not done on a sound policy or scientific basis, the company appealed.
But this decision drives a coach and horses through the government's claim that it's going to listen to the views of local people. The local people have made their views completely plain. 98% don't want you here.
The key point here in terms of planning is about balance and here we have balance between the need of the nation for major infrastructure projects and the local interest. And clearly the Secretary of State has considered those interests, and in balance he has determined that the site should go ahead.
So where does the government's decision leave local people and their ability to influence what happens in their towns and villages? Here's Claire Langan again.
I think it leaves the government's localism absolutely dead in the water and absolutely hollow, a sham, a charade. I mean, people have been through every possible democratic avenue open to them, from parish council to district objections. Peterborough City Council objected. The county council, to their great relief, threw it out unanimously. But they've been ridden over roughshod. What more can people possibly do to make their feelings clear in a democratic, legal and peaceful way?
The government said today it is committed to localism, but sometimes issues of national importance will have to override the wishes of local people.
Andrew Bomford reporting. Eric Pickles declined to be interviewed on PM. The local MP is a Conservative, Louise Bagshawe, MP for Corby. What do you make of the argument that sometimes national importance has to override a local concern?
I suppose that is occasionally true, but I don't see how it's true in this case. If, as Augean, the developers claim, the waste is so safe that it's less than 1% of normal background radiation, then it can safely be disposed of close to where it is generated. What you have here is the betrayal of local people by two successive governments.
Your own government betraying your constituents?
Absolutely, and I stand for my constituents first and foremost, and I'm not afraid to say so. It is the last Labour government that relaxed the planning rules to allow places like King's Cliffe to be considered, and the reason that this has national importance is that where King's Cliffe leads, places up and down the country can follow. Now nuclear waste has been established, can be disposed anywhere in the country that a developer sees fit to throw up a site.
Is it your assertion that this waste would be harmful to the local community?
Absolutely it is, and we have presented plenty of scientific evidence. That's why, contrary to what Augean's representative just said on your programme, every democratic authority in the area turned it down. The county council turned it down. Local district and borough councils of both Labour and Tory persuasions turned it down, and local people turned it down in a referendum.
But what about Eric Pickles' expert advice that he's been hearing, that the planning permission for this waste wouldn't be harmful?
Oh, I don't know what to say to that other than it flies in the face of the evidence that we presented to the inquiry. It was widely believed by media that attended that inquiry that Augean had their lunch handed to them in terms of scientific evidence. And I see this as a pre-planned decision by government, and I'm afraid it makes me believe that there is nothing that local campaigners could have done to change the minds in advance. And that is a tremendous shame, because if we are to have safe nuclear energy in this country, we must carry the public with us in how we dispose of waste.
Accusing the government of having a pre-planned decision on this is suggesting deceit.
I don't necessarily suggest deceit, but I do suggest that their minds weren't as open to persuasion as they ought to have been.
Wait a minute. No, you're being quite categorical. They made up their minds before they looked at the evidence. Now, they say they looked at the evidence and made up their minds. Which is it?
I believe that the evidence flies in the face of the decision that has come down today, and I find it quite insulting that the Environmental Protection Agency, which has delivered this ruling, states as part of its statement issued today that local people were consulted. Yes, they were consulted, and they said no. They said no at every opportunity. And as your report states, and as Claire Langan and other campaigners state, this leaves the government's localism agenda in tatters.
So localism, schmokalism, doesn't mean anything?
Apparently it means something up until where it bumps up against national priorities, and I'm very disappointed in the decision by the Secretary of State today.
How big's your majority?
My majority is 2,000 Conservative from 2,000 Labour, but I have been fighting this all the way, as local people are well aware, and continue to do so on your programme this evening.
Louise Bagshawe, MP for Corby, thank you.